Welcome to Candid Conversations with Candidates, brought to you by Crowing Power in partnership with the Brainerd Lakes Chamber and Lakes Media Collaborative. I'm Lisa Paxton, and it's my pleasure to welcome Taylor Stevenson, who is joining us as a candidate for Senate District 10. Welcome, Taylor.
Thanks, Lisa. Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure. We're going to open first with your opening comments.
All right. Well, it's good to be back here. We're filming here at Brainerd High School, so this is pretty familiar territory for me. As a person who grew up in the Brainerd Lakes area, graduated from Brainerd High School in 2006 and graduated from Dartmouth College in 2010. I ran for state senate 2 years ago, and I've been active in the community since that point. I've been a teacher and a coach here for the last year and a half. I just started 9th grade football, and so we're a week into our training camp, and we'll be hopefully having a very successful fall. Really, for me, the reason why I'm running is I get to see every day. It's the kids who I'm coaching, it's the kids that I'm teaching, and as a substitute, I get to see all different types of classrooms. I get to see preschool, middle school, high school, and I see that there's a tremendous amount of need. And where I really started my political journey was back in '07 with our referendum, and then to see us pass an 11 referendum and still not have enough to avoid certain cuts, I think that the state needs to do better, and I think that this area, generally speaking, whether it comes to education, health care, or the economy, needs an advocate, and that's why I'm running here.
Okay, great. Let's roll into our questions. The first question is really, what are 3 things that distinguish you from the other candidate?
Well, I think one of the biggest things is just you look at where our backing is coming from. 2/3 of the people who donate to my campaign, 2/3 of the money that is spent in my race comes from small donors versus my opponent who has a $10,000 loan from a bank. I think that talks a lot about how we see accountability as necessary in the political arena. I think one of the other things that really differentiates me from my opponent is just our willingness and our belief in the necessity of finding common ground and consensus. When my opponent was in the state senate a few years ago, she was a part of the first state shutdown. And I think in all things, all of my community organizing, when I'm on the different boards of nonprofits that I'm on, we're always trying to find consensus and find what are the best ideas out there. And so I think those 2 things are very important, as well as just kind of our heart for the community and what really is important to us. I think our approach to governing is just fundamentally different.
Okay. So you touched on the economy. What strategy do you propose to help grow Minnesota's economy?
Well, I think we need to look more at public-private partnerships. I think too often we're hearing an adversarial tone between whether it's government actively seeking to regulate or business, telling the government to get off our backs, right? I think that we need to see that a strong community is set on a 3-legged stool, with nonprofits being one stool, the private sector being another leg, and then the public sector being another. And that innovative and fresh approaches are what we absolutely need. And that's, I think, another one of the differences that I really bring to this race is that innovative, that willing to look at new ideas, willing to seek out the business community, seek out our economic development leaders, and have a conversation about what's the best way to grow our area.
Okay. So what are your recommendations to balance the budget in the next session?
Well, I think we need to understand that this is a very complicated question. Anybody who comes at this with a 3-word statement is simply not looking at this in an intellectually honest way. And we need more honesty in politics. We absolutely do. We need all the ideas we can get our hands around. And so I think all points are on the table. We need to be talking about revenue. Right now, somebody who's making $30,000 a year is paying almost 12% of their income in state and local taxes versus someone making $100,000 who's only paying $8,000. I think that we need to flatten that out. A lot of people, both Republican and Democrat, have proposed a flat tax. I think it's something worth looking into. On top of that, I think we need to be looking at what is the role of government. Unlike the private sector, where you have a market force that drives efficiency, government doesn't have that. So what we need is elected officials who have the intellectual discipline and the honesty and the rigor to demand better and better of ourselves, and that's one thing that I like to bring to this race.
Okay. Let's talk about transportation, obviously important to central Minnesota. What do you think is the solution to Minnesota's unmet transportation needs?
Well, I think we need to look at the bigger picture here. For quite a while now, we've been looking at simply auto-centric, making roads wider, making more and more pavement, and we're finding that that's simply unsustainable when you talk about long-term investment. So what I would like to see us do is provide options for people. That's what people want, is they want freedom to choose. And I want to be able to choose whether I bike, whether I walk, whether I drive a car. I would love to, on some rainy day or some day where a bunch of people from the cities are out clogging up I-94, I'd love to be able to get on a train in Brainerd. What we were built around is that train economy. I'd love to get on a train and go south to the cities and be able to go to a Twins game or a Vikings game. I'd love to be able to get on that same train and go to Duluth, same train, and go up to Bemidji. So I think taking a multifaceted approach is what we need to do in terms of our transportation needs.
Okay. So let's talk about education. What is the state's role in workforce development?
Well, I think it's one of the lead partners, especially when you look at economic recovery. I know the director of the Workforce Center points at one of our biggest hurdles being that skills gap. And not only kids in high school, but kids who maybe have gone out of high school and did not get their degree, or they you have adults who have been in a certain sector for 20 years, and now all of a sudden they're laid off and they need a new job, they need to get into a new career path. I think the state needs to be investing in our citizens, and that's what we haven't been doing. We haven't been investing in our students at the pre-K level, where we have the highest return on investment. We haven't been investing in our students K through 12, and we haven't been investing higher ed. Kids are coming out of high school, coming out of college right now with tremendous student loan and student debt burdens. And that's not what we need to jumpstart our economy. We need a government that is forward-thinking, will look to business and say, where are our skills gap, where are our needs, where are our training needs, and then put the resources in a common sense and accountable way into it so that we can begin to work again as partners to grow our economy.
Okay. Let's end our last question about Minnesota healthcare. Spending is expected to double in the next 10 years for Minnesota's healthcare. How would you address the rising cost of healthcare?
Well, I like to think that we would all do better under a Minnesota Medicare system. I know that my grandparents love the Medicare system that they have because it's simple. If they are sick, if they need care, they can just go to the hospital. One of our biggest problems that we have in healthcare is we have a cost control problem. We have people who don't have insurance and are being paid for by people who hold premiums, and they're going into the emergency room. They're seeing my stepfather at St. Joe's, and it's costing 5 times as much as if they'd simply go to their normal, regular doctor. We need to be focusing on getting those people into lower cost treatment options. We need to be focusing on making sure that we're not practicing defensive medicine. We also need to be looking at preventative medicine. And I think if we move to a Medicare type system, we will have that ability, and the studies show, it backs it up, it will save us a ton of money in the long run.
Okay, that concludes our questions, and you have about 10 seconds for anything else you want to say.
Well, I just encourage people to look at the race. Visit us at www.taylorstevenson.com.
Great. And thank you for joining us for Candid Conversations with Candidates. You can see this and other interviews at votebrainerdlakes.com and vote November 6th.